Hello, everyone, and welcome to 100 Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host, Logan Landers, and today I'm doing a top five list for the top five NCAA wide receivers coming into 2022. So if you enjoyed this video or this episode of the podcast, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We go live each and every single week on Facebook and YouTube. We have clips our show on Instagram at 100 Football. Also, be sure to go follow us on LinkedIn as well. And of course, our podcast with over 1,000 episodes and counting anywhere there's a podcast: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Overcast. And that is all thanks to the Believe Podcast Network for all their support. Let's get into it, though. Enough chitter-chatter. Let's get at it, right? Number 5 on my list, we're kicking things off out there in North Kakalaki. North Carolina represent Josh Downs, number 5 for me from the Tar Heels. This guy was super impressive last year, guys. 101 catches, 1,335 yards, 8 scores with, of course, Sam Howell tossing the ball, slinging on the rock each and every given Saturday. First in the ACC in receptions last year, 10th overall in college football in total receiving yards, and he was second in the ACC with 102.7 yards per game. He went over 100 yards in 5 games. He had one game with over 200 yards as well. However, with Carolina underperforming last year, having a bit of a rough season, they only won 2 of those games. So that's why the touchdowns are a little bit lower. And this guy is a threat. He was the only kind of real threat for a receiver last year for this team. And I expect him to perform even stronger this year. But it's going to be a little bit tougher, though, because teams are going to be locking in on him now to see how they can stuff him at the line of scrimmage. Like I said, he's a little bit under 6 feet, a little bit undersized. But I think that he is definitely capable of having another great 2022 season. Number 4 on my list, going out to Texas, Xavier Worthy. Last year, 62 receptions, 981, and 12 scores last year. This is just, like I said, last year, man. First season, 6'2", 160, and a top option wide receiver, number 1 in this room here for Texas. He scored at least once in Texas's 6 games, so he was dominant there. And 12 touchdowns overall, led the conference. Over 100 yards in 4 games last season, and he had multiple games in which he scored multiple touchdowns against Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Kansas. An amazing day for him when he had 261 yards against OU. I mean, I get Oklahoma didn't have the best defense last year. Still, man, 261 is still 261. That's phenomenal. That's great. And he now is going into a situation with Quinn Ewers, we all know, and it could be electric. There can be some fireworks out there, and Texas has a lot of potential this upcoming year, I think. So we'll see how Xavier Worthy can do with that new QB under center. Number 3 on my list. Let's move it on to Kayshon Boutte. I talked about him a little bit. Go over and check out my top 5 players in the SEC. This young man did make my list. I ain't going to spoil away. You got to go check it out. But I got to put him on my list here. 38 catches last year, 509, 9 scores. Unfortunately, he did have a season-ending injury, which forced him to miss 6 games last year. He only had 6. He only played in 6 games last year. But in just those few games, though, he had over 500 yards. He had almost 40 catches. He had almost 10 touchdowns. I mean, come on. Get out of here. Guy is insane. An absolute monster. He caught 6 catches for 127 against Auburn. Had 6 catches at Kentucky before he had that injury, unfortunately. A great route runner, top-tier speed like a jet. And he is one of the, if not the fastest players in college football. Not just receivers, just players in general. Lethal on the outside, can run through any DB. Best of luck to your safeties as well. Once he gets healthy, man, this LSU team is going to be relying on him heavily this upcoming year. That's why I got him at number 3 on my list. Number 2, rocking with the Biletnikoff Award winner last year, Jordan Addison. You see him there in the Pittsburgh uniform because, I mean, hey, I don't have him in one of the USC one that he ain't played. But he did transfer over to the Trojans out there in USC. Mr. Caleb Williams is going to be throwing to him. And boy, obviously this guy had a great year last year, right? 100 catches, 1,593, and 17 touchdowns. Led the nation, obviously, in touchdowns with 17. Won the Biletnikoff Award winner for the best receiver in college football. Second in the ACC last year in terms of total catches, and first in terms of receiving yards and receiving yards per game. He had 8 games in which he had over 100 yards. God. And he was second nationally in the NCAA with 40 catches of more than 15 plus yards. Big play threat much? I'm just saying. 12 touchdowns from the slot last year, 3.3 yards per route in the slot as well, and just an absolute monster on the field. In the last 2 seasons, right? 160 catches, 2,259 yards, and 21 touchdowns in 2 seasons of work. So now he's coming to the USC with Caleb Williams, who had a pretty solid year in 21. Can this guy get even better? We'll see. But he is not my number one selection, because I'm going to a man representing the Ohio State University for my number one pick for the top receiver this upcoming year. Jackson Smith-Njigba. If you haven't seen him play, much like any of these fellas, please go and watch him. 95 catches last year, 1,606 yards, 9 scores. And this was done with a receiving room that had Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Both those guys are first-round talents. And now that Jackson gets to move into that number one spot, bro, the potential with him and CJ Stroud. I mean, that could be the number one duo in college football this year. Honestly, it really could. Let's talk about some games in which he really shined, right? He set a ton of records at Ohio State in terms of season records, right? Catches and yards. Also a bunch of single game ones as well. He had 15 catches against Nebraska, 15. And in the Rose Bowl, he had 347 yards. Like, this guy is writing history as we speak. Averaged 123.5 yards per game. Number one in the Power 5. And number 2 in the FBS. Had over 100 yards in 7 games last season. As a number 2, number 3 option. Not even the number 1. A very productive receiver. Doesn't drop many balls. Can do anything you need him to do. Can run crisp routes. Can get you the deep ball. And my choice for the number 1 receiver coming into 22, if you thought the stats last year were impressive, watch out, man. Because Jackson Smith-Njigba, he could break even more records. He could break his own records. He could go after even more. I'm just saying. Go through my list one more time here. Number 5, we got Josh Downs. 4 is Xavier Worthy. Number 3, Kayshon Boutte. 2 is Jordan Addison. Number 1, Jackson Smith-Njigba. That's my list. Hope you like it. If you're not a fan of it, put your own top 5 in the comments. Who did I miss out on? Who would you slide in? I would love to talk with you in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. Also, please go over and leave us a review on our Spotify, on our Apple Podcast, anywhere you listen to us. We thank you so much for all the continued support. And with football season right around the corner, guys, it's almost here. We are right in the thick of things in both the NFL and in college football. Please turn on notifications and be sure to subscribe, because we have anywhere from 10 to 15 plus videos and episodes each and every single week detailing college football, the NFL, and even a little bit of high school whenever it's in season. So if you want us to cover your team, if you want us to do a game preview, a team preview before the season kicks off, please put it in the comments and we will put it in a future episode. I've been here with today, Logan Landers. Have a tremendous day, great weekend whenever you're listening to this, and we will talk to you again on